All right, this section is all about what we do if we have to take the square root of a negative. So in the previous lesson, we couldn't take the square root of a negative because we said there was no real solutions, which is true. What you get is this imaginary solution that is an I. So for example, if you want to take the square root of -5, the square root of the negative is I, and then you just break down the root. So we do the same thing. It's just if there's a negative, you pull an I out, which is the imaginary solution. So for number 1 here, we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday. We're going to solve for x. So the first thing we have to do is get all our like terms together. So I'm going to add the x squared over. Then subtract 5. Sorry, that's a fraction. Divide by 4. So I get x squared equals -7/4. So now when I go to do the square root, you still get plus or minus. The square root of a negative, this negative comes out and becomes I. And then break down the number like you normally would. So the square root of 7 is just root 7, and the square root of 4 is 2. So you get this plus or minus I when it's a negative. And then break down the number like you normally would. So when we go to solve number 2, I'm going to distribute the 2 first. Combine all my like terms together. So when I subtract the 14 over, I get x squared equals -4. So then when I go to square root, I still get plus or minus. The negative comes out as I, and then the square root of 4 is 2. Now usually in books, we write the I behind the number. So if you see an answer keys that the I isn't behind the number, that's the same thing. But sometimes it's easier just to tell you to pull it out first. So just remember that 2I is usually what the answers are. But if you write I2, that's fine for now. So for number 3, get x squared alone. So I subtract 10. Divide by 3. So this would be -12. Square root. Okay. Break down 12 like you normally would. So 12 breaks down to 2 root 3. So plus or minus. And then, like I said, the negative, there's an I. So if you just throw the I out front, that's fine. But if you're looking in a book or taking SATs, they usually throw the I behind the number. So if you write this is fine, but also realize it's the same thing as this. They usually put the I behind the number. And then for the last one, subtract 9. -50. Divide by 2. X squared equals -25. Square root it. So x would equal plus or minus, and square root of that is 5, and then you need the I because of the negative. And like I said, if you wrote it with the I in the front, that's fine for now, but just beware that it's the same thing. So you're still solving. It's just on the test, if you get a negative, that gives you imaginary solutions, not real solutions. So that's what the I is. The I is your imaginary roots.